You have the best little co-pilot with you ever.
I know.
Awesome.
I've had him since, when did I fly out to get him? Flew out to Florida, picked him up. What was the date of that, Kels? End of February.
And his name's Crow?
Yeah.
What kind of dog is it? Is it a German Shepherd?
No, he's a Belgian Malinois.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we mostly have in the teams. We have a few Belgian Shepherds and like a few German Shepherds, but mostly these little guys.
No, so he was a military dog? He actually?
No, the guy who trains him, prior military dude, and he trains him for military and law enforcement. And he has a foundation, Warrior's Choice Foundation.
Yeah.
So what he does is he hooks guys up, guys 100% disabled vets and guys with missing legs and ugly people like me. He must have felt sorry for me, so,
I know the feeling. He should send me a dog if the ugly part works. Well, listen, brother, I appreciate it. I mean, you're slam beyond belief to take the time, and it's fun to finally get to chat with you face-to-face because we've kind of gone back and forth for a bit. First, I just want to say you can't do something like this with someone like you without saying thank you for frankly all that you've done, combat veteran, Navy SEALs extraordinaire. So thank you for that beyond belief.
I appreciate it, brother. It was a fun job, trust me.
Man. So I actually ended up connecting with you, interestingly, because you, after the SEALs, have become this incredible craftsman, artisan of knives, hatchets, blades that are so spectacular and online. I ended up reaching out to you and bought a few for me, including this little baby right here that you made custom for me. We'll talk about that and a few other of my toys from you that I have. But I ended up with our agency here in LA giving them out to some of our top clients for Christmas gifts this year. I think you remember. I'm like, Andy, I need 5 of those sick hatchets to really important people. And you made 5 of the most trippy, custom, insane hatchets. And every person was like, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm like, oh, the dude's a Navy SEAL. He was making knives for, and everyone's like, this story's freaking incredible. So then when we started doing this podcast, I'm like, I got to reach out to this guy, Andy, and be like, let's freaking get your story told, man. So that's how we got here.
Oh yeah. I appreciate it.
No, we love it, man. And let's start out with the beginning as far as everyone asks you this, but we got to do the same. Navy SEALs, buds, like what got you into signing up? What was that process like? Take us through your journey as a SEAL from the beginning.
I guess before that, since I was 6th, 7th grade time frame, I wanted to be in the SEAL teams, and it was because my mom's cousin who lived near us growing up in Northern California bought me like a Navy SEAL workout book, and it kind of, I've always been an outdoorsman and ran around with my older brothers when I was a little kid and made knives with my older brothers and just, been using knives forever before we get into that. And then always running around every stick as a gun when you're a kid, you know what I mean? And you're always painting your face in mud. And anyway, the military interested me, right? So then 6th, 7th grade, my mom's cousin got me Navy SEAL workout book. I looked into that, and as I got a little older, and the internet started coming around. I was like, okay, I look into Army Special Forces, Air Force, all the different special forces, and I was always fond of water, and just seemed to me like the SEAL teams being able to go to another country, strap on some gear, jump into some bad dude's backyard at night and smoke them just seemed like the thing to do. So it was like, you're kind of no-brainer, so I made that goal pretty young age, and decided to try to take off right out of high school and join, so that's what I did.
And so you were, what, 18-ish when you went to Buds? Is that true, basically?
Yeah, right before I turned 19. Actually, let's see. Yeah, right around there.
All right, so you're one of the younger guys, or ish. I mean, the average, I think, is a little older, but you're still fresh out of.
There's guys that are 17 and a half with their parents' consent to go in, right? And so if they get through, when I went in, you had to go to like an A school, like a regular Navy rate school, and then everybody in your class went to the regular Navy. You went to SEAL training, to Buds, Now you go in, you go to boot camp, and you can go to Buds. So they skipped that little section. So I was at like AO school for 6 weeks or 8 weeks and then checked into Buds.
Yeah. So now I'm one of these people that, one, if the water's above or below 80, I ain't getting my fat ass in the ocean, even if the waves are good. And I live right by the ocean. But yet I've been obsessed my whole life. Like I watched the videos on Discovery of Bud's Class 234. I've read the book. Because frankly, like I'm in awe because I've never, for a second, I couldn't have done it for 20 minutes, man. I'd have gotten off the bus and said, "Where's the bell? Can you direct me to that?" And some hot chocolate and, a warm shower.
Right.
So I've been always obsessed with what the hell you guys are made of that gets you through with something like a 75% washout of dudes who are already the fittest of the fit and of them 75%. So take me through, buds for you, basic underwater demolition SEAL training, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, honestly, it was fun. It was kind of like, since my goal was to be in the SEAL teams, right? And you had to be like this badass dude. It wasn't to me, I never thought about quitting. And some of my best buddies who made it through, like, same thing, they didn't think about quitting. It was like, this is, just do what they tell you to do, and it'll be a learning experience, right? I'm here to learn. I'll do everything you tell me to do, and I'll try to crush it, and that'll get me to that superior person, right? That person I looked up to, that person that guys with the trident, guys in the SEAL team. So it wasn't, I think over the years, it's really, the guys who are joining over the years has changed. Originally, like, I never met a Navy SEAL before I, joined to try to go, and that's how it was, Wasn't a lot of books, wasn't a lot of movies back in late 90s, you know what I mean? So I think now it's such a cool guy job, right? Because they know we skydive and we shoot people in the face and we go into combat, and it's a cool guy job. There's always two sides to that. Like, it's really awesome, it's a cool guy job, but there's a lot of heartbreak, of course, and loss. But back to buds. To me, it wasn't pass or fail, and I knew it was going to be miserable, and it was going to be fun, and it was going to be challenging, and it was going to be cold, and it was going to be tough. But I also knew, like when you get there, you meet other guys that are semi-like-minded, right? They have similar goals, and so you make friends, and that gives you drive, and competitiveness as well. And then you guys, guys are falling out, and guys are quitting because it's miserable. And if you're not in as good a shape, you're in the back of the runs, and then they cut you off, and they let people who run better finish, and they'll put you in the ocean a bunch. So I was always a good runner. I was always a good swimmer. I really did well in SEAL training, physically and mentally. I don't know why. It's not something specific, I think I just wanted it so bad. And I ran a lot before I joined, and I just went in with the mind, like, I'm going to be the weak link. That was my mindset. You know what I mean? And I tried to I don't want to be the weak link, but I'm going to be the weak link. So I'm better try my best. You know what I mean? I think people don't go in being proud, and people should go in with, I don't know. You got to be an attitude of like, hey, this is just what I got to do. This isn't pass or fail, or I can quit.
Yeah. Wasn't an option for you. How many did you start out with in your class, and how many graduated with you? I think the class number was maybe 185, 86, and then we graduated 22 originals. 22 out of 186 made it.
Yeah, well, so what happened is, guys quit, guys got hurt, and then some guys got rolled, like failed. So they got rolled, like they're good dudes, and they're really having a hard time with certain parts of training. They'll roll guys, and they'll start with the next class, and they'll get a chance like that. So a few guys got rolled as well. But, I mean, there's the class right now, like the second phase class right now, there's 10 guys.
Currently right now in Coronado.
Right now. Yeah, they're on hold because of the virus, but there's 10 originals. That's it.
Do you know how many started out? There's been some
classes in history that had like so few guys, it wasn't worth doing the class for them, so they just waited till the next class came up. There was like 4 guys after Hell Week. You're like, that's a miserable Hell Week.
Oh my goodness. That's just,
or just a lot of quitters, dude.
It speaks to the mentality of the ones who make it through. And, having been a stalker of the books and written by SEALs and watching a bunch of the stuff on Discovery and YouTube, one of the things that comes up a lot, you can speak to it more from your end of it, but at least the instructors or the people who make it through, they always say over and over again that it's, 90% mental, 10% physical. Now, for those of us watching it, and you guys are getting your ass beat 24/7, you're going through things like Hell Week, where I think you sleep like 3-4 hours during a week. If I don't get 12 hours, I'm a miserable bear in a nice bed. And we're just watching guys getting beat on, and then someone's like, "Oh yeah, it's 10% physical, 90% mental." But it doesn't look that way. But yet everyone says that it makes it through.
I hear that a lot. I think here's the thing, there's guys that are super physically fit that quit, right? Okay, right? They didn't want it bad enough, their physical attributes were there. They didn't want it bad enough. There's guys that aren't the most physically fit, that may be a little slower, that just won't quit, right? They just got that mental toughness. Ideally, you have both, you know what I mean? And I don't think it's 10% physical. It's probably 90% physical and 90%, mental. And then you got some percentage in there of luck of not getting hurt. You know what I mean? That's just luck, not getting hurt, stepping in, a hole in the ground when you're running during buzz, not breaking your leg. But it's also the more physically fit you are going into it. You got to think about this. The faster your body is going to heal, right? So if you're not very fit and your body gets broken down day by day by day and you get a small amount of time for recovery, if you're already not physically fit, your recovery period needs to be longer and you don't get that time. So day by day by day, you're progressively getting worse and only recovering a little bit. So if you're really physically fit going in, you're not going to have as hard a time because your short period of recovery time is going to work well for you to get you back,
Yeah, it's also got to be, I'll ask you as the person who went through it, but it's got to be a lot of stress management or the ability to use it to your advantage. Because I remember one of the guys who was going through the program either wrote about it or said on some program, how do you prepare for a hard kick in the balls? It's coming, but you can't stop it. So from that mindset, like, do you crumble knowing it's coming, or like, what does your mind go into to be like, it's going to suck, but
you just fucking smile, dude. And you go, all right, here it goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really, it's like, some of the worst times we were laughing. You know what I mean? Me and my buddies, it was like, oh my God, this is so terrible. Like, what more can you do to us? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the greatest mentality. Like, you're miserable, but it's funny. And your buddies are laughing too. Like, your buddy's miserable with you. It's awesome.
Yeah. And talk about Hell Week for a second, and we're obviously going to get into knives and everything else and some other stuff. But tell me about Hell Week. Like, they call it, they don't call it like kind of tough week. It's Hell Week. What's that like?
Well, you do, you kind of prep for it on Sunday. You just sit there and wait, and then do breakout, right? So Sunday evening through Friday afternoon, and you're carrying your boat. You're with your boat crew of around the same size guys. You're going in and out of surf. You're doing races. You do, 12, 14-mile thing down the beach, carrying your boats and then running and carrying the log. And it's just constant. And if you're fast and you're in the front, you might get a little 5-minute break or a little thing here, or be able to, take the boat off your head. If you're not, your teamwork isn't working good, or you're really slow, you're going to get beat more, What's cool in my Hell Week, they always do bet, all the instructors they're funny guys. They're the funniest guys I've met in the SEAL teams, and they're always playing jokes and doing tricks, and they're always like betting on guys, how they're going to do. And instructors will pick their favorites, and like, you're doing well and you're an instructor's favorite, right? Cause you're a really kick-ass dude. Like, they'll come up and like sneak you a little piece of beef jerky or like, fun stuff like that. So they let, this one officer pick his own boat crew. So it was like me, my buddy Wobig, my buddy Morrell, Jeff Nichols, and a few other guys he picked. We're kind of different heights, but all of us are really put out guys. So we ended up winning probably 9 out of 10 races all week. So we got these little breaks here and there. And then on Thursday night, I believe they do this thing where you have to build like this little stadium in the sand, down into the sand, and they build a fire there. You sit far enough away, you can't stay warm, but the instructors get the fire. And then they make you get up and do whatever, tell a joke, do a skit. And if they don't laugh, then you got to go hit the surf and get cold, so it's constant games and it's constant, teamwork, and it's miserable, but I don't know. I liked it. It was miserable, but it was fun, Yeah.
You learned quickly. You're incentivized to develop.
Yeah, like there's little cool traditions where like Thursday night as well. Maybe that was Wednesday. Thursday night, you do this thing around the world, right? So you start on one side of the bay in San Diego on Coronado, and you and your boat crew just paddles up. You start in these mud pits, and then you paddle a few miles, and you come in, check in with like instructor. They'll dump boat, whatever. You paddle a few miles, you go all the way up outside like the tip of Coronado, out where the jetty is. You carry your boat over the jetty, and you come all the way down, all the way back down to the front of Bud's on the ocean side, Pacific side there in Coronado. It's a long route, but what's cool is the class before you, the brown shirt. So if you graduate Hell Week, you get a brown shirt. Before that, it's a white shirt. they'll go get Gatorade and like Taco Bell or whatever and bag it up, and they swim out into the ocean there or into the bay where all the boats go by. They'll swim out in their cruise and they come up, they'll wave a chem light and they'll come up to your boat and drop in some goodies for you. So like cool stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it can see why it takes a certain breed for sure. There's a lot of, there's a saying that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And I've absolutely stolen from you guys a lot openly over the years, and always acknowledged it's some of the favorite sayings. I'm not dumb enough to steal from the SEALs, and that's what happens to me. But one of the sayings that you guys have really owned is a saying of it pays to be a winner. And then, for us, LA ad agency, where everything we say here is pass or fail. And I say to people, we don't make campaigns for people to watch and say that's nice and not buy something. I don't care if it's wonderful or great or beautiful. If the end result isn't success, second place is first loser. Another saying stole from you guys. And we always share that and say some of the sayings and where they come from. But literally, those are just exceptional things in life that I've personally drawn from, whether it's in work, at home, things I try to hold myself accountable. And those are things that you guys really look for every day, that second place is first loser in your world, and it does pay to be a winner, right?
The basic understanding of that when in training is races and stuff like that. But once you get to the SEAL team, it's like, hey, what's losing? That you may lose your life, your buddy gets dead, stuff like that. So it starts out in the small understanding of winning, getting a break, stuff like that. But that kind of teaches you like, hey, you don't want to be a weak guy on a mission who your buddy gets shot and you can't carry him out of harm's way. You know what I mean? So all those things are like, the better you do as a person, you're a better member, you're a better operator of your group of guys, and each guy does their part plus a little, then you're going to be killer team. You're going to be epic. You know what I mean? Together. So it's like, why I have a favorite, I think it's in the Bible. I have a favorite saying, and my mom said it to me when I was a kid, I think, and it's, whatever your hand finds it to do it with all your might. And it's just such a rad saying. And I've always kind of tried to live by that. Like, why, even if it's a mistake, I've had new guys that were like aggressive and good and gung-ho and did most things right. And when they screw up, it's a pretty big mistake. But that's so much better in my mind than that guy, that gray man who just does enough to slip by to get unnoticed, who does nothing great and nothing that good. You know what I mean? And then he gets to walk around and be like, I'm a Navy SEAL. Be like, yo, fuck you, dude. You're a pussy. You know what I mean? You didn't earn it. Why are you saying I'm? Your team earned it. Your buddies earned it. Yeah. The loss of life that we've had, that they've earned it.
Yeah, really well said, man. So you joined up, and it was right before 9/11, very close to 9/11, right? On the dates?
Yep, just right after. A good buddy I grew up with, actually, Derek Benson, he joined 1 year before me. We were trying to join together. I had quit my senior year in high school, moved to Montana, worked on a ranch, came back, knocked out my last few classes, and joined. So he joined 1 year before me. I joined right after 9/11.
And then what happened? 9/11 hits. Where were you? Your Navy? Had you graduated? You were an active Navy SEAL when 9/11 happened?
No, I was right. Where was I, man? It was right before joining.
Oh, before joining.
So, yeah, I joined in 2002.
So you knew what you were getting into full steam. If you
I was already planning on going, man. I wish I got in a year earlier.
Right. You're like, I want part of that, man. I want payback for that.
Like, I was already going to join. Now I was like, all right, baby. Now I'm going to stack bodies. All right. Yeah.
So where was your first assignment then after you graduate as a SEAL? I know.
So you graduate BUDS, right? And then you do, you go to SQT, SEAL qualification training for another 3.5 months. So you do that. Then you have 3 weeks of cold weather training up in Kodiak Island. And then right now they have free fall school in there too. So you do 2 weeks of skydiving within that pipeline. After that, when you graduate, you get your Trident. Then you check into a SEAL team. And what's cool about that is you realize like think about you're the top dog as a senior in high school, and then you go to college, and then you graduate college with a degree and you don't know shit and go into the field. Like, you learn the basics, right? So you go to your team. If you're a good dude, you're humbled. Whatever team you're going to, they're usually coming back from overseas. So you check in with them. The guys in the platoons there kind of stack their platoons, the guys they like, the pipe hitters, where they're going. The older guys know. So then they hit up the instructors, right, their buddies that are over you, and they're like, okay, what are the good dudes? So then they'll ask you to like, hey, bring that guy to this platoon. You know what I mean? So you get farmed out.
It's like fantasy football, but for the SEALs.
Yeah, a little bit. Except you don't get paid.
Right, you get shot
the
at.
pay is very low.
And you get shot at, you know.
Right.
Right. So where you're finally a Navy SEAL, you make it through everything. We're in the middle of you know, the aftermath of 9/11. Where's your first assignment that really?
So I checked into Team 5 and hopped in with some real rugged dudes who had just got back. And
was that Jocko's team? Was that 5? Was he?
No, he was at 3. He was at 3 with JP.
Okay, right. They call that Bruiser. So you were on 5.
Yeah, Kevin Lace was over. He's TF Bruiser. He's a good buddy. He's my Buzz class too. Or actually, I think that was at 7. They were at 7.
Got it.
Maybe if they were 3, I don't remember, man.
So you're at 5, and where did you guys go?
So we went to Iraq. I deployed with 7 to Iraq. I was at 5. We got disbanded as a platoon. That's a long story. And then deployed with 7, came back, back to 5, then went on deployment again about a year later to Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia. Lived down there for a while, hunting Abu Sayyaf and stuff like that. Iraq is rad. That was crazy. You know, we did sniper overwatch, went all over up to Tal Afar, northern Iraq, like did sniper overwatch from these castles and the insurgents coming in and doing crazy stuff. And luckily we didn't get blown up, you know.
Very first time in combat, the first time. Was it any different than any other day for you, or were you so trained and prepared at that point that it was like rock and roll, let's go?
It was rad when you finally were able to fire your gun, you know, and get into a firefight. You're like, oh my God, so long training to get to do this. You're just stoked, you know, and then you're like, you're pretty locked on overseas, man. You're looking for those opportunities. You start realizing when you're newer, you're learning a lot, right? You're learning how it works, how you're communicating with your buddies, how bad guys work, right? So you can study them, but then when you're over there, you realize like when they like to come out, what times of day, how they move, you know, what they do. They'll put their weapon here and they'll walk across and get lunch and then go back and get their gun. Like they're sneaky bastards. You know what I mean? So you kind of learn your enemy and you learn the tactics, and it's ever changing. And then maybe you do another platoon. A lot of times by your 3rd platoon, 4th platoon, you're pretty knowledgeable in who's bad, who's acting certain ways, who's acting fishy, what you need to do, how you should be doing it. You know what I mean? So then after Southeast Asia, I went to SEAL Team 1, and then I was over there. I was a fire team leader over there. I went to Afghanistan with some really good guys there, which was epic. I love Afghanistan.
So with making the knives, the hatchets, everything that you do, we're going to jump into some of that because it's all interchangeable. Was that something, I know you did it when you were younger before, even before the military, you had some background, but were you making actual knives while you were in the SEALs for any specific use among the guys, or were you using what was issued and it just became something afterwards? How did that get started?
Yeah, it came about afterwards. You know, when you're in, you're really too busy to do much else. You know what I mean? And that's your focus. Like you want to just keep doing platoons and getting to go to war with your buddies. So you don't really, I'm not married, I don't have kids, you know what I mean? So I didn't have like this calling to go to be home and have to be home and do something else. So, you know, it's either what's issued or guys buy their own equipment a lot of time, buy their own knives, stuff like that. I actually was running kind of a big knife, and sadly a lot of people out there make too big of knives. You don't need a monster knife. So I had a pretty big knife overseas, and I ended up, it was just too big, and I ended up tossing it out and getting just Rapala fillet knives shipped out to us, and that's what we end up carrying, these little fillet knives.
And you don't have idiots like me who just call you up and say, "Hey, man, this is great. And you're going into combat with one of these."
I have a buddy who carried his in Iraq.
Describe that.
I had a buddy who had one that size. He carried in Iraq. Super good buddy of mine. His nickname's Dirty.
Describe this one that you made, if you remember it. It was the Japanese sword that you made.
So it's got giraffe bone, and it's got that, I think the bottom is that Tasmanian eucalyptus and giraffe bone.
Yeah, and we put our company name, we put Launchu engraved on it. And it's not a samurai sword per se. There's a different name for it.
Washizaki.
Yeah, what's the difference between that? It's like
size.
So it's a short samurai sword, essentially.
Right. So you have the katana, the Washizaki, and the knife. I forgot the exact name of the knife size one. So you have the 3.
So your company is Half Ace Blades. We're obviously going to show that a lot, but I still got to show off some of my toys that you made for me.
Yeah.
This is the hatchet that you made. In case
the elk antler and pine cone.
Now, what's fascinating is that these are works of art, but yet I would say, at least what I started to do is I give these as gifts, and I don't give too many because they're freaking expensive, as they should be. They take a lot of time. They're custom. There's no two of a kind. Of the 5 or 6 I've given out, 3 people have sliced their hand just taking the cover off. When I say, no, it's real, don't, and and these things are real weapons. I mean, if you want this as a weapon, this is a weapon. If you want it as a showpiece, it's a showpiece. But I mean, this is the real deal.
Yep. That was kind of the goal. I wanted utilitarian. I can make some real wild stuff, to put on the shelf too. But even the shelf stuff, I want it usable. You know what I mean? I want that utilitarian, usable piece, but I want to be able to make it, fucking savage and beautiful, or as dark and sinister, or as tactile as someone wants. Yeah. But I want it to be, I want the design to lend itself to a use. Yeah. To a job.
I'll tell you quite honestly, I bought this as a showpiece for the office. I had you engrave this one. It says #the negotiator. And I joked and said that, this way, if I get into a budget dispute with clients or employees asking for more money at reviews, I just take out the negotiator and talk about it. It became like an inside joke, obviously. But I will say that as things got pretty hectic over the last, couple of months, this one lives at home now. I'm not going to say where I keep it at home, obviously, and tell people where it is. If someone comes through my front door, they'll find out where
I carry mine in my car.
Yeah.
It's a tool. It's a pry bar. You got a spike. You got a pry bar. You know what I mean? So it's it's a tool to me. It's
real. And this one, people are going to think I'm crazy also from you. But, I mean, right in your pocket, right? You call this the disaster, I think?
Disaster folder, yeah.
And I mean,
just because it's a strong tip, the way I designed it is a really utilitarian strong tip. You got a little glass breaker on the bottom.
Yep. So if you're stuck and there's a window and you're in a car and you want to get out, and that's the thing. So what, again, we're going to put up the website for Half Ace Blades, and we don't make a penny off of it. We're not trying to sell anything. We just like to share great stuff, and we can talk more about some other great things that you do and share some other URLs that help a lot of great vets in a bit. But I will say that, I've given these as gifts to CEOs and successful people. And, how do you get someone something special if they have access to everything? Well, these are unique. I also got one for this older gentleman who's a handyman and kind of spends most of his time in his van going from door to door doing odd jobs for $15 an hour. And I got him one of your blades because I always saw he was working with some knives and they were nothing special. He's just a great human. And I didn't tell him the story. And the guy follows up and he's who made this work? This guy's been doing stuff with his hands for 40 years. And all he keeps talking about is this. Then I told him the story. He goes, I told everyone it just had to be like the magic. I've never had a blade like this.
That's so rad. I love that. See, that makes me so happy when I hear stuff like that, man.
And part of me wanted to say, Ron, it's kind of pricey. Maybe you put it on your shelf at home and look at it. I don't want to say anything, but I don't want to feel bad. But he's using the thing left and right. And I'm beautiful, man. And so tell me about Half Ace Blades, because this thing started small. It has exploded. You have over 200,000 on Insta alone. You've just upgraded your shop. How did you first put Half Ace together, and what's the story there?
Man, when I first got out, I caught up on surgeries and I broke all my fingers real bad, ripped all the meat down, doing some stuff in training, and I caught up on surgeries, and they're like, man, you could stay in. It was before ISIS. It was kind of mellow on the missions, and they were like, here's my 10 years, catch up on 2 or 3 surgeries. They're like, hey, we'll give you 100% disability, or you can stay in and we'll fucking see what happens. So I was like, 10 years. 10.5 years. All right, I'm going to punch out, and, young enough, I can work on some other projects. I was already working on some stuff up in LA on some movie stuff here and there. And then I actually started a brewery and distillery with another team guy and some other guy. And they just ended up being so shady and stealing a bunch of money. And I just had issues with that. So I was actually up working with Michael Bay on some stuff. And it was hungover one day. And I was like, man, thinking about when I was a kid grinding knives with my older brothers, and man, you know what? There's always a need for especially an end user, knowing what's good to carry and the size and the shape of a knife and a tool. And I was like, man, I'll just start making some knives for my SEAL buddies that are still active duty.
Yeah.
You know, so I just did my research on, you know, best steels for the specific jobs, you know, and got a grinder, and it was just under the awning in my house in my backyard.
Well, and what was this? When was we first started?
That would probably be the end of 2014.
And how'd you come up with the name for the company?
A few things. One, back in Afghanistan, northern Afghanistan, me and a few of my buddies were hunting bad dudes. I had a mohawk, and I had like a bunch of feathers braided into it, and I used to paint my face from like the bottom of my ear across to the bottom of my ear, this side, like black from here up.
So like a half face.
Yeah. So, you know, I had a paint horse too, which is crazy over there too. So I'd be out on missions on my paint horse with I would just wear my kit, no pants, no shirt, and just some leather skivvies.
Going like this, you're like Braveheart. You're like thinking it's a fucking movie with no
right, just native
through and painted and shit.
Yep.
Except you're for real. It's not Hollywood.
Yeah. It was rad, man. So that, and then, you know, it goes along with, you know, speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah. No, man.
You know, and it's like you get to know people, you know, you get to know their other half, but first meeting people, everything like that, they have, you know, they have a half, and everybody has another side. You know, it may not be a bad side, but
the first time, you know, I ended up even hearing about you for the first time. I think, you know, what's cool about your whole story and getting to watch it from pretty early on is, you know, how authentic it is and how real it is. I mean, look, you're not a marketing guy. You're not working with these big marketing agencies or marketing companies. You're doing it all yourself. You know, we've even chatted about that. I'm so impressed just watching how you do stuff, and you'll drop some blades online, you post something, 20 minutes later they're sold out. I mean, and it's like, you know, you're really like doing it all yourself and building it up. But I remember, I think it was about a year ago, I'm watching the Joe Rogan podcast, who obviously, you know, has, you know, I don't know, a gazillion more followers than we do at this point. So he's doing something right, and I like Joe a lot. And he also, when he talks about stuff, I've noticed he's not selling shit. He's not trying to pimp it out. If he says it and he uses it and he likes it, it's authentic, and he's sharing it. And he mentioned something about when he goes for a run in the mountains or whatever, he always carries his half-face blade. And I'm just like, I was thinking of a knife at the time, and I pull it up and I see your website, and I'm like, and I was just like, man, this is freaking real. This dude is real. The story is real. The names you come up with, I got to ask you that. I didn't want to forget that. I sometimes go surf your site, and I'm out of money. I can't buy anymore. I freaking, you know, that's it, man. You know, enjoy your new car. I paid for it. You know?
I hired another worker. I hired another veteran 2 days ago. So
awesome.
That's where your money went.
Then it was well spent. Then I'm glad that you're doing that. How do you come up with these names? Are the names, what are some of them are like the Crow, the Disaster, Junior. I saw the pig sticker the other day, and I'm like, ooh, and someone's like, what are you doing? We're in a meeting, and I'm like, I need a pig sticker. And they're like, what the fuck's a pig sticker? And I'm like, oh, it's the new knife. And I'm like, and I'm obsessed. And you know, I'm like, dude, if I bring in one more knife, I think that the ATF is going to come to my house. So I got to be careful. How do you come up with these? Are these real names like that exist in the knife lingo, or are you making?
I don't know, man. I don't really get involved in the knife world because I've noticed I hope people don't get mad, but it's very few end users. It's a lot of knife guys, a lot of knife nerds, a lot of knife guys, which there's a lot of knife nerds who make amazing knives. I'm not taking away from, you know, there's guys who make better knives than me out there. They're just not end users. They don't use their own knives. So sometimes they're making a knife that's supposed to be a Skinner and it's 0.20 inches thick. Like, bro, that's too thick. You know what I mean? Or it's supposed to be a backpacking knife and it weighs a pound. Like, being an end user has been a blessing because I'm like, I want something light. I want it this thick. You know what I mean? You know, it depends if it's a one-off, you know, and it's like that knife, that Damascus dagger is going to a guy who has a ranch who wants it for pig hunting because Damascus doesn't hold an edge, and he wants it for stabbing, you know, going in and stabbing the pigs. And so I called it a pig sticker. Now, of course, I get hit up like everybody wants one. I'm like, well, that's the only piece I've found that big, you know what I mean, of Damascus.
I've noticed there have not been pig stickers on your website for a while, so come on, man, get a few up there if you would.
I'm working on it, man.
I'm saving. And
sometimes I run out of names, and I'm like, I just did a couple one-offs the other day. I did like 20 of each, a new design, and I was thinking of Guile from Street Fighter, and then I was like, oh, but Ryu and Ken, they're stronger, so I named them Ryu and Ken. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I just run out of names.
Yeah.
But you know, the Crow Scout, Crow Junior, I really like Native American culture. I'm very small amount, you know, Crow, Indian, and I got really, my older brothers are big into Native American culture and growing up outdoors, and I read a lot of you know, Native American stuff, and I do a lot of obviously stuff in the wilderness. So that was kind of, I went with that. That's why I named my dog Crow too. You know, I like the history of crows, whether it's Nordic or Native American, stuff like that.
A lot of the stuff too, I mean, obviously has a very specific defensive purpose behind it. You have some of the spikes that you call them that have like the paracord handle. They're very thin. They're very concealable. You know, and that has a specific, tell me about some of the spikes. I know you do some drops of those. I was able to.
Yeah, I'm always working on those. Well, they have the smaller one. It's a pneumo spike. So it stands for pneumothorax. And it's really just a quick lung puncture. I mean, you could hit somebody face, neck. It's an offensive tool or defensive tool, right? Ideally defensive. You're not just trying to go after somebody unless you're protecting somebody else. But just, you know, you that'll go right through clothing, right into your chest, and do a little puncture into your lung. That'll slow someone down. The other one's a cardiac spike because, you know, cardiac's your heart. So it's just a bigger spike. It's more of a tool. It's more for law enforcement. Guys that carry bigger dudes, you know what I mean, on their plate carrier. They'll run it in the center of their plate carrier in front of their plates, and they can get to it either hand and use it, whether they press the backs of them and they lean into it. I mean, a lot of different ways to use that, but it's a great little defensive tool and easy to throw in a purse.
Yeah, I use mine a little differently. If I'm at a business meeting in Beverly Hills with some real
eating
douchebags or someone trying to be really difficult, or agents, or, you know, the Hollywood types, you know, I'll just take it out and just, you know, use it for my steak. And I realize that
I get pictures
to go much
time,
better.
Man.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
I get great pictures like that.
You'd be surprised how much better the conversation goes, and everybody's a lot nicer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I get great pics of just like the Crow Junior. Someone's eating, you know, an $80 steak, and the Crow Junior and their fork, so they had it on them at the restaurant. And then I do one-off steak knives for guys, so some dudes will carry their own personal steak knife, you know what I mean, and stuff like that.
I saw the actual kitchen knives that I mean, it's just really cool. I mean, it is all so functional. That's what's great about it. And when you actually have a good knife, a proper knife, like a chef's knife, like the ones that you make, and you actually, you know, splurge, invest in cutting your meat properly. You know, I barbecue. I have 4 kids. We barbecue a lot. And honestly, to use a knife like one of your chef's knives, where it changes the experience, the handle, the weight. And it's so funny because it would have been a hard thing to justify typically, because what's ever in the drawer you use, you know, you go to Target, you do whatever. And I wouldn't now. I'm not saying go out and get 15 of them, but you know, if you splurge and treat yourself to one nice one that you take care of, and you know, and as you go. So it's a really cool thing that's about that. I want to talk about a friend of yours who was in the news. You were very supportive of him. Highly controversial story. We're not going to, you know, I'm not going into anything that you don't want to touch on, but Eddie Gallagher, buddy of yours in the Navy SEALs. Did you, and just to set it up so everyone knows what we're talking about watching, he was the Navy SEAL who went to trial accused of killing an Iraqi civilian. You'll correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, because I don't want to get anything wrong. And ultimately, Trump did get involved to some degree. Which
he was accused of stabbing an ISIS terrorist after he was already injured. So
you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, which didn't happen. Obviously, that came out in court. Who actually, you know, had put the guy out of his misery. It wasn't Eddie. It was already, the guy was in a building that they had already killed a bunch of other ISIS dudes in. They dropped a bomb on the building. The only guy who lived. The day before, they were throwing, you know, guys off roofs, and women they claimed had sex before marriage. These ISIS group was throwing guys off roofs and women off a roof and stuff like that. So in my opinion, you know, smoke them all. But so he was accused of that, and then he was accused of possibly killing a civilian, a girl, which wasn't true either. The pictures, I mean, some of the stuff that didn't even, I was in court every time with it. I had already been out of the military when that deployment. He actually was in a sister platoon of mine, not in my platoon, but I've known him forever, and he's a very gnarly, good, solid operator. You know what I mean? He's a gnarly dude, and he's gone to war 9 times. He's been overseas. You know what I mean? The dude knows a lot more than newer guys when it comes to who's enemy and who's not. You know what I mean? And some of the newer guys were just kind of, he had a really high standard, and some of the guys were butthurt, and he called him out a few times long before this ever went down, and they kind of built their little I Hate Eddie group, So it's crazy because they even got a hold of these guys' cell phones that accused Eddie, and they were on WhatsApp, their little sewing circle. They call themselves the sewing circle. And they're like, hey, we need to go over across the street. We need to meet up and get our stories straight, all sorts of gnarly stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't even come out in court. That was just like, these guys were lying left and right. You know what I mean? And it's still controversial in the SEAL teams. There's a bunch of team guys that are like, oh, he probably did it. And it's like, in my mind, like, I'd like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? And because everything came forward, they put every guy on the stand. They put him on the stand. They went back over there and tried to find the angle which he would have been shooting to kill a civilian. You know what I mean? Like, civilians accidentally get shot here and there, you're right, in firefights. But he wasn't targeting them. No one's trying to target civilians. That goes against almost everything the way we believe and why I would join in the first place. Like, I want to protect my own. I want to go hunt down and kill bad dudes. But ultimately what makes you a good operator and makes you a good warrior is because you have a big fucking heart. It's because you love so deeply, and you love your family so deeply, and you love your friends so deeply. You put yourself second, and you're willing to take that sacrifice and die for them. You know what I mean? So that guilt of shooting somebody who doesn't deserve it, right? On accident, that's one thing. You understand casualty of war and compartmentalize well, but you're not targeting innocent people. That goes against every reason why you joined in the first place. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm glad it all came out. He's working on a documentary that's going to show all these dudes crying, like literally crying. These grown men, 10 years in the SEAL teams, crying, trying to push a narrative, against Eddie. So
well, I think
I got rolled up in it, dude. They asked all the guys if they claimed I was intimidating witnesses and just a bunch of stupid shit. I don't even know any of the guys.
Well, I'd read something at the time, and I'd never asked you, nor would I get involved in that sense and leave your business to that. But there was a thing, whether it was said or not, it was in a newspaper, which doesn't mean much, that he had gotten a knife from a friend back in the U.S., a special knife, and said, I'm going to plunge this. Do you remember that? Did you know that story I'm referencing?
Yeah.
Saw that?
Yeah. I mean, there's half that platoon has my knives, and they've got tomahawks of mine.
So, yeah.
One of his accusers has one of my knives he carries on.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with half-face blades. Now, afterwards, of course, the knife, they raided his house. They took all his tomahawks knives. They took his half-face blades hat as evidence, all this stupid shit. And then the knife in question wasn't even a half-face blades. And the New York Times people tried to say it. They put it out in New York Times that I made him this custom knife so he could kill somebody with it. It wasn't even one of my knives. And then this one dirtbag from New York Times was like saying, well, it was one of my knives, but I didn't put my logo on it. And so I hit him up and I was like, bro, you're literally saying I did that when I didn't. And I have some badass lawyers. And I was like, here's the deal. Does Glock take their fucking logo off? When guys carry Glocks, when police officers, does Sig Sauer, when does H&K take their logo off when we use it overseas? Like, no, I'm not responsible. Someone buys a knife and they use it wrong. Like, I'm not held responsible. That's on them. You know what I mean? Not that he did that, but it's so ridiculous, man.
Well, it's when you talk about, or when I say the authentic side that I've just seen, I think with everything about you, which is what interested me in speaking with you, is you can't be authentic part-time. You can't be authentic half the time, or 80% or 90% or 100. And I got to say that while all this was going down, this was the lead news story, whether it was Fox, CNN, didn't matter, probably in the world, if not the US. And I would say, I remember going to your website, and what you had up was discounts or promos to help Eddie, your friend Eddie. And I got to say that my takeaway was, man, a small business owner, clearly not someone who's getting like huge funding from outside companies. You're doing it all yourself, $1 in, $1 out. And, I got to say that most of the CEOs that I work with in the advertising world always say, hey, don't take sides, don't pick sides, because being right 50% of the time, or 51%, you don't win. You've pissed off 49%. So always be, innocuous, or always be benign. And I respected the hell out of you that in the middle of this storm, where there was such divisiveness, whatever side you're on, you said, fuck it. This is my friend. This is it. I'm going to raise money. I'm going to do t-shirts for Eddie. I'm going to do all this shit. And I think, that says a lot about you and the authenticity that you stand behind. I remember that.
Well, dude, my friend, the fact he was facing life in prison for killing a bad dude, I don't care if I lost my business, then that's my friend. You know what I mean? That takes precedence. That loyalty and that love takes precedence. I understand the ramifications. People kind of warned me, well, what if you did do it and he gets busted?
People said that to you? So people actually said to you, hey, man, you sure you want to do that?
I'm like, hey, dude, I would go to the wall for my buddies. If he did that stuff, then he's got to live with it. But I still don't think he deserves spending his life in prison. You know what I mean? You want to send him to war 9 times? Come the hell on, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to talk about your business in a second, where you go from here, and some great charity work you're doing. I want to say one other thing on that, and certainly this is not a political show in any means. I don't think most people look at me and think I even know how to vote. I usually need a little help and direction, but I will say that regardless of what side someone was on, the part that didn't sit well with me as someone who had no information, completely on the outside, was I didn't quite understand why this guy Eddie had to be incarcerated the way that he was leading up to the trial. That seemed very unnecessary, abusive, and to your point, someone who's been to war 9 times, has a family, wife, and kids. He's not skipping the country. He's not. That in itself just seemed not indicative of
way too much, man.
The benefit of the doubt of a war hero. That part was not in dispute, that he was a war hero. I don't know.
Right.
You got killers who get out on bail.
Man.
You get mobsters who get out on bail. You've got rapists who can get out on bail. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case. But
you guys who commit murder and get out at 14 years and 13 years. You know what I mean? You have a guy who's
where was this guy going to run?
Zero proof of him killing a civilian, and then it was just
he was in. Weren't they keeping him in solitary or something?
Stabbing a guy who was already dying.
But weren't they keeping him in solitary? During was that true?
They put him in solitary. Went in
pre-trial,
out of solitary, but then he was held.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Well, there's supposed to be a wing of the jail that's for pre-trial. They put him in with everybody who was post-trial. And a lot of the people in the jail, majority are all kiddie porn, and kiddie rapists and molesters and child molesters, right? So he's in there with all these people that he would like to kill too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So stuck in there, it was just such an abuse of power. Obviously, the military got slammed for it. It made the SEAL teams look bad. Those guys who whined and complained and cried made the SEAL teams look bad. The SEAL, the admiral was I don't get political and stuff like that, especially with business. I will be a patriot no matter what. You know what I mean? I want what's best for my country and my people no matter what, right? So I don't get political and business-wise. But I think that loyalty to friends and family is huge no matter what side of the fence you're on. You know what I mean?
I think that comes through with everything you say and do. A couple of great organizations you support. One is, you just mentioned that you hired another veteran. How many people total are working now with Half Face? How many is involved?
I have 11 of us, 11 or 12 of us right now. And, 2 really close buddies I've known for years. My buddy I grew up with since 9th grade. I was really involved in the skateboard industry and stuff like that for a long time. Still am a little bit. So I have some pro skater buddies that work here. One's retired. My SEAL buddy, I've had 3 or 4 veterans come through work for me. I just hired a guy who just got out last week from a rescue swimmer in the Navy. I have an active duty Marine that works for me, helping me program because I just got some new equipment. So
as many veterans as you can hire, that's your first choice.
Yeah. My first choice is good people, man. It's hard to get a good team, obviously, in business, and we're kind of we do a lot together outside this. You know what I mean? I like plan trips. We all go shooting and we all go on a trip together. I'll try to charter a fishing boat. We can all get out on a boat, or it's kind of a cool little, real tight knit. If someone's got family problems, we try to help out and work through it, or, give a guy money to help get his truck fixed or whatever it needs to be. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't have kids. I'm not trying to line my pockets. I want this business to grow. I want to put good tools in people's hands. I want to support these nonprofits,
Let's talk about
guys I believe in.
Want to make sure that we make both of them clear. We have sealff.org and then AmericanWarriorAssociation.org. We're going to put both of those up along with obviously halffaceblades.com. But tell me about both of those organizations that you help out with.
Yeah. So this guy, Johnny, who started Seal Future Foundation, really good dude. I worked with him for a long time. He actually was going to, I think, Duke online, and when we were at a training command, and the commander would let him go meet up with his class, and he got out, I think went and worked for, I don't know, Deutsche Bank or somewhere out there, and decided he didn't like it. So he's back in, he's got 5 kids, he's active duty, and he does business, big CEOs and stuff like that. He does mentorship for them, and he's still active duty. So he started that, and it's kind of to help guys, one, do continuing education after their GI Bill runs out. It kind of helps them get into like Wharton, Harvard, Yale, like Stanford, these really good schools. And some of the money is also helping for guys that have like TBI, traumatic brain injuries, and for some going to do irregular type of experiences, whether psilocybin and stuff like that, to help guys with some traumatic brain injury stuff, some more natural remedy stuff too. So that's Seal Future Foundation, really good dude. I've raised a lot of money for them. And then American Warrior Association, a little bit newer. It's kind of similar. It's getting guys out, whether military guys and first responders, but either taking them out as couples, doing retreats, men's retreat, women's retreat, and then also, on the hunting side, taking guys who donate, we take them hunting, and they have time for outdoors and spending time, away from the city, and just getting people out of their normal everyday, life, and get a little bit of good experience in the wilderness, and also that continued education and just health in general for guys.
You've done a lot of amazing things for a lot of people. Last thing I wanted to ask you is, where do you go from here? 10 years from now, where are you? Where's Andy?
I don't know, man. I got to get out of California.
Yeah.
I grew up in like St. Helena up in Napa Valley. Yeah, it's beautiful on the mountainside up there. I love it. My mom's still up there. But business wise, man, I can hire 2 more guys, and all my guys could buy, homes or condos somewhere in like Henderson.
Yeah.
So it's so hard. I want to pay guys well, but it's like we're a small business, and I pay half the guys healthcare, but I want to pay the guys more. But even $45,000 a year in San Diego, $50,000 a year is paycheck to paycheck.
It is a brutal time and state. Before COVID, California is a tough state to own and operate a small business. I'm in the same boat. I came from the East Coast, and when you're dealing with all the taxes and all the regulations and all of the rules and everything that is just 17 layers beyond anywhere else, it's sometimes amazing that any of us are still small businesses here now more than ever with COVID. Yeah. Hopefully everybody's safe on your end with COVID, I hope.
Yeah, man. I do a lot of stuff, a lot of tools for military, law enforcement, firefighters, stuff like that. I do, tools for the SEAL team. So, as long as my guys, first off, they're healthy, then safe, I wanted to keep providing opportunity to work, and my guys want to work, you know what I mean? The majority, all but one guy, has been coming in, staying safe, not hanging out with people outside of work, wearing face masks at work, and we're crushing it, and they're getting hours. We're working overtime. Guys are still making their money and being able to work, and feeling really blessed that we have the opportunity.
You, my friend, are the definition of authentic. I think it'd be hard to think of anyone or any business that is doing it more right than you are. So I hope you know that and feel it and people see it. Andy Arrabito, combat vet, just a spectacular guy on all levels. And man, we're wishing you 1,000% of anything great, and make some more pig stickers, man. The public is calling.
Man, I really appreciate this. I don't actually do a lot of podcasts. It's probably my second one I get asked to a lot. And, talking about myself I don't like it. I like talking about the SEAL teams, what I learned there, my buddies, one of my closest buddies who died at training, this guy, Brad Kavner, he had a saying, and it's a really good toast, and it was his toast. And it's, to those before us, to those amongst us, to those we'll see on the other side, Lord, let me not prove unworthy of my brothers. And it's just such a good, kind of sums it up, Now,
I now know why on all of your tools it says "to those before us."
Yeah,
I was not 100% sure, but I have seen that quite a few times from you.
Just on those tomahawks, and that's kind of the ode to Brad Kavner, and it's really the ode to those who came before us. You know what I mean? And what we owe them. What I owe my SEAL buddies who are dead now, I owe them that honor to live well and take care of those around me.
Well, and the rest of us all owe you and all of your fellow SEALs and all military beyond words cannot say enough. So at least let me say thank you again for all of that.
Appreciate it, brother.
God bless. Stay safe, brother.
You too.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, brother. All right.